Hello everybody, welcome to the video. For those who haven't seen my content before, my name is Derek. I'm a digital designer and multimedia artist. I work in advertising and social media marketing, and today I wanted to talk about what they didn't tell you in art and design school. I really felt underserved after graduating in 2020 when it came to my job search, and just overall how competitive the job market really was and how to best market yourself within it. Let's get into the video. So the first part of the video I wanted to talk about is where to find jobs and what different type of work environments are there. A lot of the time when graduates first start job searching, they look on Indeed, Glassdoor, and LinkedIn, which are all great spots to submit your applications. But there are more resources. The first two are hiring temp agencies. The first one is Creative Circle and 24/7 Talent. I really recommend these because I've used them before. I'm sure there's more out there depending on your location. But for those designers and artists who need their foot in the door, this is one of the best places to start out. The other is going into LinkedIn groups. There are subgroups within the LinkedIn community, and oftentimes they'll post jobs or they can connect you with people who can get you a job. And lastly, there are online and in-person networking events. Some of these include the AIGA, online meetups, and even the Adobe Creative Meetup. Within all of these areas for job search, you'll encounter several different types of jobs. There will be full-time, part-time, and contract work. Full-time is your average job, 9 to 5. You work at least 40 hours a week. Part-time is less than that, usually around 20 to 30 hours a week. And then there's contract work, which can both be full-time and part-time, but usually contract work only goes for around 4 months to 6 months, and sometimes even a year. Sometimes these contract jobs can even turn into full-time jobs. A lot of the temp agencies get you contract work. Think of contract work a lot like freelancing if you're using an agency, but it's all going to be under through that agency. So they'll handle the taxes at the end of the year and you'll only have one form to file, neither though you'll still be paying money like a freelancer to the government. The next part of the video I want to talk about is what other jobs that you can actually apply for those who have a graphic design degree, maybe a UX UI certificate, and maybe even an illustration degree. The first job is a photo retoucher. Retouchers work primarily within digital photography. They use photograph editing software such as Photoshop, and what they do is touch up photos for a variety of uses. Some of these can be for brands, some of these can be for smaller businesses. Often it can be for people's old wedding photos on a freelance basis, so they can go from really small clients to really big clients. The primary skill you need to have is an understanding of Photoshop, and sometimes even printing techniques, because sometimes photo retouchers will help people even print them. The next job is a production artist. They're a lot like a photo retoucher in that they do touch photography and edit them for clients and businesses and agencies. But also a production artist will work for graphic designers or on a design team, and sometimes even for a web design team. So they'll do anything from photo retouching to editing a document, editing a PowerPoint presentation, or even editing icons for a website or photos for a website. Usually when a team or an agency is working on a big job, a client will send back tons of edits, and they'll have to go through these either giant presentations or go through a website and do all the tiny little fixes that a client would want. And so sometimes legal will have an edit, sometimes a project manager will have an edit, or maybe the designer on the team doesn't have time to fix it. But production artists will work on this at a variety of teams at a fast pace. So you'll need to know Adobe Illustrator, InDesign, PowerPoint, and Photoshop. And for the web-based roles, Adobe XD, Sketch, and Figma. The next job is a video editor. For this job, you primarily need to know just Adobe Premiere, audio editing, and sometimes Adobe After Effects for smaller animations or adding in extra graphics for the video or project. Editing can be even a full-time job and career in of itself. A lot of the time you are on a freelance basis, and sometimes the clients can be found to you through a temp agency or on your own. Upwork is also a great place to look for clients in this job. The next job I want to talk about is a social media marketer or a social media manager. This was how I got my break into the industry. I started off with a social media internship, and then it turned into a social media contract job, and I just kept job hopping ever since that. But a lot of the skills that it takes to be a great graphic designer, it takes to be a great social media manager, and illustrators often thrive in this role as well. The big thing that separates this role from an average graphic design job is the understanding of different social medias and their algorithms and learning to adjust for video platforms. Sometimes they'll even want you to write content or work with a copywriter and know how to do paid advertising on social media. Now, knowing the Adobe software is great for this role, but sometimes they'll mostly just have you work on Canva or in other people's templates. But they're great roles if you're trying to get more into advertising. The next job is an email marketer. Now, you might need to write more in this job, but they do require a lot of design skills. Email is really the holy grail of marketing, and knowing how to have great CTAs and write great copy is a really useful skill across all jobs through design and illustration, especially when it comes to marketing yourself. So it's a great first job to get your foot in the door. Having knowledge of how email campaigns work and the general software that people use like HubSpot or MailChimp or even Salesforce is a great way to get into this job. Having knowledge of Canva and the Adobe suite also will help you out when it comes to creating graphics. The last job I'd like to talk about is a presentation designer. This is something that a lot of design schools don't tell you, but for your first couple of design jobs, you'll be making PowerPoint presentations for not only clients, but your internal team as some of your first jobs. The primary program you need to know is Microsoft PowerPoint and maybe even Photoshop. This can be a full-time job if you really find that you love it, but presentation design is something I've had to do in almost every design job that I've had, and design schools don't tell you that you might need to know PowerPoint. Luckily, I knew Google Slides, and it was able to translate well into Microsoft PowerPoint, and sometimes even Microsoft Excel you might need to know to pull data from to create charts and graphs. But it's really important to know how to design a good presentation for when you get into leadership roles and you need to pitch a job to a client or your boss. But overall, these jobs just aren't really talked about when you're trying to start applying or getting out of college. Now, this is the third thing I wanted to talk about is your resume. A lot of design schools will say they will judge you on the design of your resume and that'll affect how you get your job. And in some cases, yes, if you're applying for a really bougie agency and they don't have any online applicants and your resume has to be handed directly to them. But for the majority of jobs that a designer is going to have to apply for, or even an illustrator has to apply for, they are using an applicant tracking system or an ATS system. And when you design your resume in InDesign or sometimes even Canva for any loose cannons, those systems are going to read your resume inaccurately. They have this special filter for applicants, and they're going to look through keywords on your resume, and if it does not scan through correctly, your application isn't seen by anybody. My best tip is to use those resume template sites and kind of fix them up yourself, but just make sure that they can be read by a screen reader. I really recommend resume templates and even cover letter templates. Now, I don't recommend applying for a job that asks for a cover letter because no one reads them, but if you really want to submit one because you want the job, use a template. People don't read cover letters. They just want to see if you wrote one, and just switching out the company's name and the couple details in the paragraphs won't take too long. But overall, don't be afraid to pay like $1 or $2 for a resume template. It'll just serve you so well in the future, especially if you can go back and edit it and export out a PDF. Just pay attention to keywords, and a lot of that is going to be going into reading job descriptions and just seeing what works. There's also software out there that'll pair your resume up against the job description and see if that you put in enough right keywords. They didn't tell me this in design school, and I was designing my resume and wasn't hearing back from like 80% of the places that I applied to. Now, the next part is what you can do to bump up your resume besides, working or volunteering. And that answer is certificates. The obvious one is to get a certificate in Adobe. This does cost a small bit of money to take these certification courses, but once you have a certificate from Adobe, you can even make extra money teaching Adobe software to people. But it's just good for those hiring managers who don't really understand creatives and how to hire them, that the extra little certification to prove that you know the software, they feel more confident bringing you on to the next stage of the interview. It could also be a sell for when you're in the interview that you can teach other employees more about the software, and it shows that you're willing to learn and also be a leader by teaching. The next set of certificates is going to be from HubSpot Academy. A lot of jobs don't want to hire a marketer and a designer. Sometimes they'll ask you to be both. A majority of the times they will, depending on how big of the company you get hired into. So the HubSpot Academy certificates are all free, and they also show up on your LinkedIn profile. Same with the Adobe. But what happens is that these teach you the fundamentals of digital marketing. I have 4 certificates myself, and they really helped me when it came to spearheading any type of strategy with my CMO on my first job. For those of you who don't know, CMO is Chief Marketing Officer. I'm not saying you need to get the exact certificates that I got, but I got a learning certificate in email marketing, inbound marketing, social media marketing, and search engine optimization, or SEO. These certificates show that you as a designer care more about than just creating a pretty project or a pretty post. You're actually considering the business needs of what you make. They also help you market yourself and market your portfolio and just you throughout your career. Just browse through HubSpot Academy and think about where you want to take your career, and I recommend any of them. They make you just more marketable and more knowledgeable about the industry. The next set of certifications I'd like to talk about are Google certificates. I really only recommend the UX UI certificate for most designers. Now, those who you want more of a marketing angle, I recommend the data analyst certificate. These only cost about as long as you're willing to take the course and complete it. So $45 a month. So a lot of the time it takes around 6 months to complete these certificates. And since they're $45 a month, you can recommend right around 135 total if you can get it done in 3 months. I've had friends get the Google UX UI certificate, and it has helped them out, especially if you already have a bachelor's, which is unfortunate that we need to get more education to get these foot in the door jobs. But any extra edge that can put you against other applicants is better than none. The last one is getting LinkedIn certifications through Udemy. You can get pretty much a class and get a certificate in almost anything. And I recommend just standard Adobe software or digital marketing or social media marketing. A lot of the time I've been saying that you want these certificates to show up on your LinkedIn profile, and I'm meaning it so that your profile just shows up in more searches for recruiters or anybody else just looking for more people to hire. Sometimes when submitting jobs, you can just upload your whole LinkedIn profile to that job, and these certificates will load right into there. Again, I really wish somebody told me about this when I was in college, because I could have worked on these before I graduated and just started applying to jobs that had an edge over my classmates. Now, this last bit of advice is specific to my school because they required us to have a printed portfolio. And I am telling you, unless you are interviewing majority of in person, you do not need a printed portfolio. You just need an amazing website that showcases your work in the best possible light. You do not need a printed portfolio because even if you do interview in person, you can just open it up on your laptop using their Wi-Fi. And often when you get to an interview, they've already looked at your portfolio. They already think you're good enough. It just comes down to personality in the interview. And a printed portfolio is just good for that extra bit of flair in person. But at the end of the day, if you don't sound like you know what you're talking about, they're not going to hire you even if you have a printed portfolio. So only just focus on a good website. Think of your website as a tool that will help someone get effectively through your work and your skills. You want to showcase your likes, your interests, and your thinking through all of your projects. Your website is your best marketing tool, and it's what you should link to people on your business card, on your LinkedIn profile, and just what you send everybody. I just did an Adobe portfolio because I was already paying for the Adobe suite, and that got me my first couple of jobs, and I still use it to this day. So if your instructor is requiring you to make a printed portfolio, just put enough effort in to pass. Focus on your website. It's 10 times more important, and just have any of your friends read through it. Just don't have any typos, and make sure it's easy to go through. Also, make sure all your images are under 200 gigabytes so it loads super fast. You have less than 2 minutes to capture someone's attention in order to go through your work. Only showcase your best. I only have 6 projects on my portfolio site, and as always, I link it in every video if you're curious. Alright guys, those are the 5 things that they didn't tell you in art and design school. This is a topic I'm really passionate about, and if you want to know any more, I'm always willing to answer any questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help me out with the algorithm, and leave any comments that you think that other people should know that the art and design school didn't tell them. Have a good one.